Hello, Lisz.
Hello.
How do you combine philosophical practice with dialogue and social empowerment, which is what you work in?
I tried to find a method for me that works especially in education with children and youth. And when I found the book of Martin Buber and afterwards the book of David Bohm, I decided to try the dialogue method. So concretely that means to do like a Dialogkreis with youth, to encourage like critical thinking, philosophical thinking, and also a different form of communication other than, for example, debate or discussion, which is common.
And how does this empower the participants?
So, in contrast to debate or discussion, where there's always like this kind of fight, you want to win in a discussion or debate, dialogue tries to get another form of communicating with each other. So it's not about winning anymore, it's about sharing thoughts, developing thoughts. So, and in a non-violent way. So it's not about there is a winner in the end, but the dialogue works best when everyone takes something from it.
Well, let's say you have a youth circle or participant circle, and somebody wants to enter in a debate. How do you avoid this, or how do you manage this situation?
So for me it's important that there's always a moderator. So without moderator that wouldn't work. It doesn't mean that the moderator is beyond or above the group. He's part of the group or she's part of the group in the moment the dialogue starts. So I have also a talking symbol normally, so there are rules that apply the moment we start, and I always look that it's not far more than 20-30 minutes with a youth group. So with adults I try longer, but with youth groups I try to make it like very concrete and not too long, so they're really concentrated and focused on that. That's also the hardest part of that.
What is the difference between working with older people and with younger people?
Older people always have a lot more opinions, and also think the experiences show that they know a lot of the world, so they're not that open-minded to really, how should I say, to be critical of themselves. So it's far harder to get them into the mode of participating without any opinions or prejudices. So that's a big part. And of course, if a dialogue works, the youth tends to be far more spontaneous, impulsive, and that can also help while developing thoughts or new ideas in a group.
How do you organize these groups? Do they come together regularly? Are you working in a special place at the university or things?
Well, it depends on the project. So sometimes it's within a workshop at university, sometimes it's because of a project, and that's a major part of the project, like kind of supervision. So we do a Dialogkreis at the start and then at the end, for example, or if there's a crisis. So I think the main difference is, do I ask a question, or is there a kind of a theme for a Dialogkreis, or is it kind of coming freely together and experiencing the group? So there mustn't be a topic. It's not necessary that there is a topic or a problem to come together. So the idea is to experience a different mode of thinking, of philosophizing together.
Do you use philosophical texts in these meetings?
Sometimes I do, but only like in the beginning, like some phrases, for example, so not too long. It's just like to get maybe an idea what we could talk about, or to give some inspiration for the discussion, but it depends on the group. So if I know the group better and I know, well, they have more problems, like to get into the mode, I would do a different warming up. But with children, normally it works quite smoothly. So a question could be good, or maybe simple an idea somebody had.
Do the participants come to do some philosophical activity, or is this like a tool that you use in a bigger frame?
Normally I use it as a tool, so to get closer to a subject or even get another perspective on the subject. So it's not about being emotional or just sharing, it's about really trying to develop a thought within the group and with the help of the group, and not just your thoughts, your opinion should be the best one and you argue for that. So it's really kind of trying to be an open room for exchange of ideas, and not of saying, well, that's a good one, that's not a good one, status plays a role. No, in a good working dialogue prize, status does not play a role. So even teachers can participate. That's a hard thing for the moderator of a dialogue prize, because you have to be very thoughtful and very careful that there are no latent hierarchies in there, so that the teacher plays still his role, or her role. So it's very important that you're aware that these hierarchies are there, and then try to break it down a little bit at least. So get them on the same level, at least for the dialogue prize.
And I read you also organize philosophical cafes.
Yes.
How do these work? How do you announce these?
Well, we have different modes. We have flyers, of course, the internet, our website, also Facebook. But normally we do it in the summer semester, and in a small cafe that is kind of popular for intellectual meetings, of course. And it's a growing group now. Normally we have 4 cafes per semester, and we have one expert on a certain topic, and he or she puts his whole topic in a very, very short question. So you have the feeling you can connect to it. So it's not an academical question, can be, but for a broader audience. And then it's 15 minutes to 30 minutes short lecture, and afterwards there's a discussion, but still under a lot of rules. So rules apply, and there's a moderator always that keeps the peace kind of.
And I see you also do philosophical consultations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage these?
Well, at first I decide every time anew if I want to meet in my practice, or I call it a third space. So for example, a small cafe with a separate room. And sometimes that's very helpful, because then this whole kind of hospitality stuff, that is on mind. You need to drink something, then somebody might not feel comfortable with the arrangement, your decoration, your house. So everything kind of like this falls off. So that's kind of not my thing anymore. So that's by the cafe's owner. And sometimes for some people, for example, executives, this can be very helpful. So to get to a third place where I'm not at home and he or she is not at home. So yeah, it's a decision process.
But how is the process itself? How do you work there?
Well,
just questions or
at first I wanted to know if there's a certain kind of topic or problem, or if there's just an interest in a certain philosophical topic. That can also happen. Somebody is interested, for example, in Nietzsche, or I don't know, in philosophical practice in general, just wants to experience how it works, how works the Socratic method or so. So I have to know that before, and then I prepare myself. And yeah, it depends on what is kind of the objective of the client. But of course that can change during one lesson or one meeting. So normally I do 1 to 1.5 hours. But yeah, so that's the time frame.
Yeah. Would you say that you use Socratic method? Since you also said at one point that you don't prefer not to have a debate, not to argue. How do you combine these?
No, I use them too, but just for the Dialogkreis, I don't use them. So the Dialogkreis is my preferred tool for working with groups, because to manage groups and to like destroy the hierarchies of a group, I think it works better, at least for me. But when I meet someone, like in a meeting, client, philosophical practitioner, then of course other rules apply and they use Socratic methods. Or also during the philosophical cafe, of course.
Can you give an example of some interesting situation that happened to you in philosophical dialogue circles?
Oh yes, I can. I remember one circle with teenagers. Young men, and some of them had their time like in juvenile hall, of course. And I met them during a camp, like a summer camp, and we were experimenting with a new kind of method, like to bring them together, because there were very violent situations. We had trouble like keeping them calm. So there was a lot of aggression against the other boys, and also sometimes against adults. So I said, no, let's try this method there, and everyone was saying, no, it can't work. They will never do that because they're not disciplined. They wouldn't listen. They have no feeling for philosophy. So why try that? And I said, no, let's try that. And then we were sitting there and had these meetings actually 10 times in like 14 days. And the first time, that was a very hard time to get them to like come down and listen. But suddenly, I don't know exactly what happened, they really opened up. And in a way that I, the first time in my life, said, wow, I'm not sure that I can take it. So that they were talking very rationally. They were like explaining why they did things and how they see things, also morally. And I was very surprised because actually at first glance I wouldn't have thought that they have it, that they have such a philosophical nature in a way. So yeah, and it went on, and they were really there and wanted to do that. And in the end, you know, like they wanted also to have this kind of talking sumo with them, and we're arguing about where can we meet again, and we want to try it again, and so on. And I was so surprised because like 15, 16-year-old teenage boys who want to do philosophy that way, well, it was an experiment and it worked out. But I was very impressed, shocked too, but I learned a lot from that situation.
It's interesting. Is there anything that you want to add?
I think a big challenge for dialogue and also the Dialogkreis method is the intercultural section or the interreligious section. So the problem is when people come together in a Dialogkreis and everyone knows already what is truth, what is good, and they want to have a dialogue, like in the religious dialogue. So everyone has already the truth, knows what is good. That's a complicated situation. And I'm afraid, or I suspect that dialogue can't work with people with this mindset. So to really have a good dialogue, to really have a good Dialogkreis, you really need to have the mindset to come there and be not too sure of yourself. So it can be, for example, helpful, as you said, to do some Socratic methods before you do the first Dialogkreis. So, for example, with religious people, I would do another warming up.
So with the Socratic.
Exactly. So I wouldn't like go in there like with children. No, I would do another warming up because I would suspect that they are really sure of themselves, what they want to say, and it's more about getting their opinion to the others and to say, well, I am right, than to be open for a real exchange of ideas, because they have strong ideas and strong dogmas. So I think that in the religious dialogue is the hardest thing to do. If it's even possible, I doubt it sometimes.
So you don't think it is possible to do philosophical practice with people that have strong ideas?
No, I think it's necessary to do so, but I think it's very easy that the dialogue fails and I've only experienced dialogue failing when people come together with very, very strong dogmas and ideas. So they're very, very convinced by themselves and by their ideas. So to like open up that and break up these dogmas, I mean, I think it's kind of an important task of a philosopher to do that and to make someone more self-critical. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it, I do it, but still I don't expect it to work the first time. So I think to have that work effectively, you have to be very, very, very careful, and it takes a long time.
Hey, interesting. Thank you, Lisz.
Thank you too for the invitation.